So I was meeting up with Kelsey and we got coffee, and she said, "Oh, I love your podcast. I listened to the first episode, but I only got through the first 13 minutes." And I was like, "Oh, well, that is impossible because our first episode is only 12 minutes long." And then through a bit of poking and prodding, I found out that she'd only listened to like where the rules were. And then she was like, "Yeah, but I didn't understand it, so I stopped." And I was like, "That's what the rules are for." It's like she's reading the back cover of a book and was like, "Oh, no. Like,
But well, no. One step further. She's reading the back cover of the book, deciding she doesn't like it, and then telling the author it's her favorite book.
Yeah, big shout out to our number one fan, Kelsey. Oh, goodness.
I feel like I had something else. Oh, well.
Did you solve my puzzle?
I did not.
Yes! Hey everyone, this is Solve It, a podcast where we talk about puzzles, codes, and the history of encryption. I'm Zach Johnson, and joined, as always, by my co-host,
Sam Cherry.
Hey Sam, how are we doing this week?
I'm doing well. I still have the scratchy scratch voice because I haven't bought a microphone yet.
I was going to say that it is no secret that some of our previous episodes in terms of audio quality have been subpar, but now we have the crystal clear audio brought to us by this brand new microphone. I've only heard it from listening through my headphones, but I haven't heard it from your point of view, but you say it's good, so
sounds good.
Starting to do these crystal clear audio. See, I can whisper. I can whisper in the microphone now, and you can pick it up. Did you hear that?
I did hear it, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, then, yeah, that would have been embarrassing if it was just a bunch of, like, noises. Okay, so on Solve It, each week one of us will make up a puzzle for the other one to solve using a known system of encryption and explaining the history of that system. But in order to keep this fair, we have a few rules. Rule number 1, there must be rules. Puzzles must use an existing system of ciphers or codes. Rule number 2, everything needs to be there. All the clues needed to solve the code must be in the puzzle itself. Some clues can lead to other clues, so everything doesn't need to be there all at the start, but no guessing should be required. And rule number 3, all puzzles must be solved by hand.
Yeah, which has been super awesome this week.
Yeah. I'm glad I baited you into that, so you'd have to solve it with this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sam, this week I sent you a puzzle to your Twitter handle at Samuel_Cherry_, and it's also on our Instagram and is also on our website, solveitpodcast.com, where you can find all the episodes and puzzles and pictures from previous weeks. So, can you explain the puzzle I sent you this week?
I can. It is a little more difficult without looking at it because there's a bunch of characters, but yes.
That's one thing about this podcast. If you have not subscribed to our Twitter or Instagram, it's probably the best idea that you do that so you can actually see the puzzles, because there's going to get to a point where we cannot describe these puzzles anymore. Much like with the Pigpen cipher, we had a very hard time describing that. So once again, at Solve It Podcast for our Twitter and Instagram, so you can actually see the puzzles that are in front of you. And if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and pause the episode and look at it now. But until then, here's Sam Cherry trying to describe this very difficult puzzle.
So what I'm looking at is a black background, and there's a skeleton who is holding an hourglass and a cross, and there is an arrow next to him that is pointing down at a heart that is bleeding 3 little drops. And if that wasn't clear enough, there was then a very long string of numbers and symbols, like brackets and parentheses and some other more special symbols that we'll get to in a minute. So that's what we're looking at, is this design of the skeleton and then a nonsense stream of characters.
Exactly. And I think it's funny for the people that have seen the puzzle, I think it's funny that you think he's holding an hourglass and he's raising an hourglass. Like, why would you be raising an hourglass?
Well,
I'm pretty sure that's like a glass of like beer or something.
A goblet.
Yeah, I think it's a goblet. I don't think he's like using that to symbolize how he's a skeleton and time has gotten to him.
I would disagree with you only because my research says that is an hourglass.
Oh, shoot. All right, Sam, you beat me to it. So then that means that you know who this flag belongs to. So you beat me in research, but you forgot to mention one thing. In the tweet that I sent you,
Oh, that's
what did the tweet say?
So it says, "Find my treasure, the one who may understand it," and then an exclamation point. So I can tell you kind of where I got to. I did not solve it. Have we gotten to that yet?
No, we have not gotten to it yet.
Okay.
But Sam, did you solve it?
No, I did not. But I got very close. And I'll explain where I got, but I'm going to kind of leave some parts out because I don't want to step on your story.
Okay.
But I'll kind of explain to how I got there. So looking at the stream of characters, when it was obviously not I think of puzzles, they're either scrambled or substituted. So either all the letters are there and you just need to put them in the right order, like with episode 2, or they are substituted for other letters, like most every other episode we've done. And so it's obviously a substitutionary cipher because of all the symbols, but what I looked for was special symbols that might be unique to this kind of cipher. And so there's those little crosses that are called daggers. And I knew I'd seen them before as like book annotations, so I thought maybe this is something really old. But then there was like the multiplication symbol and the square brackets. I was like, no, this is pretty new. And I came across this code that I'd seen before called ASCII code. And so that is how you can use certain numbers on a computer to make symbols, which is funny because usually on the show we talk about the things that make you a nerd. This happens to be one of the things that very much makes me a nerd. I spent a lot of summers with a laptop that my dad got from work and just like not connected to the internet, just like tooling around on it. And so I'm very familiar with ASCII code and how to like, make symbols and stuff. So figured that out and then found a cipher that uses it that was titled with the name of a man that you have mentioned in previous episodes. So I was like, got it. This is it. This is exactly how it works. I've got your code, and what I need to do is take the numerical values of all those numbers, but then it needed a code phrase that has to be the exact same length. And so I was trying to figure that out. And again, we'll get to what that code phrase is, I assume. What I had to do was take the ciphertext, which is, the coded message, and then take the values of those and subtract them from the key text, the ASCII values of the key text, and that would give me a third value, and then take those values and transfer them into ASCII again, which would give me my letters for the plain text, which is what we usually call the answer, is referred to as plain text. And for the life of me, could not figure it out. So how close am I?
So the crashing of these two worlds is that I was spending time in your super nerd world, and everything that you just said is brand new information to me. So
hold on. You're telling me.
I am telling you.
You're telling me that you made a code that used symbols from the ASCII alphabet. Hold on. That there is also an ASCII cipher that uses a one-time pad by Vernum, who I assume you're going to bring up.
I was, but just slightly.
And it requires a key phrase that is exactly or almost exactly the same length as the cipher text. Did you know that the phrase "find my treasure," that who understands or whatever, is the same length as the cipher text?
You know what I didn't know? That. That is incredible.
So I was sitting here like, oh, ASCII code, whatever. I don't know why he's using computer code. Fine. Then I find ASCII cipher. Oh, it's got the name of that scientist you mentioned. Cool. I need to find a key phrase that fits the exact same thing. Oh my gosh, the clue he sent is the same link that's the ciphertext. This has to be it. And I spent hours and I couldn't figure it out.
That is so funny.
That's not related at all?
Not at all.
What?
Oh my God. I am.
Then I'm not close at all. Then I have no.
Oh man. That is crazy.
I was like, oh, Vernon, of course, this has to be it. And how else are you going to use daggers? Like, how can you use that dagger symbol? That has to be a computer. It has to be ASCII code. There's an ASCII cipher that has this guy he's talking about, needs a key phrase, that he has provided an exact key phrase, translated all. I'm getting gibberish every time.
Oh, man. That is so good that you thought that I was like, I went super science.
I was gonna compliment you on making definitely the best puzzle that we've ever had.
Oh man, that's incredible. Jeez Louise.
Then no, I have not solved it. I'm not even close. I'm not even anywhere on this.
That is, Ooh, man, that's good. I'm excited about this now. Oh, this episode is going to be a doozy. I am excited. Whew. Well, did you at least find out? Oh, man.
Yes, Labuse. Yes, the pirate Labuse, who is the guy that the image is the flag of the pirate Labuse, which means the hawk. He has a treasure. He uses a pigpen cipher. I thought all that was irrelevant. I had no idea why that was in there, except for that he is famous for the phrase, find my treasure, one who understands, which I thought was a ciphertext. But no, I don't know.
Yep. So now okay, so we're going to go on a completely different direction.
Can we do another episode where we do what I said?
I mean,
also do that puzzle?
I honestly think it's only a matter of time until you send me one of those, and now I will crack it using all the things you just told me. I'll just re-listen to this again.
Okay, give me your puzzle.
All right, here we go. Before I get to the puzzle, I want to tell you more about the story behind the puzzle. And as you said, that is the flag of Labuse, which in my research showed it meant the buzzard. And it is the flag of Olivier Lassieur, and he was an infamous pirate based out of the Caribbean. In fact, he's one of the most famous pirates in the Golden Age of piracy, and I think that's amazing because he's also one of the most underrated pirates. Like, have you ever heard of Labuse?
I have not.
Exactly, and like I will show you guys more about how he is just this completely fantastical character that is just not talked about whenever we talk about pirates. Like, we think about pirates like Blackbeard and other kind of pirates, but we never mention Labuse. So Labuse was born to a wealthy family, like a very wealthy French family. And he was so skilled at sailing that he actually became a naval officer during the Spanish Succession War. And he was so good at what he did, he would just destroy other ships. And he was so good that he received a letter of marque from Louis XIV. And a letter of marque is like essentially a license to pirate. So meaning that he and his crew had the ability to legally pirate. They had the ability to legally board vessels and steal all of their cargo. And if he was ever tried for being a pirate, he would just show the letter of marque, and it was like, oh, it's like when James Bond was given a license to kill. Like, he could kill anyone he wants and be like, oh, this is a letter from the Queen. I have a license to kill. So and this is like another cool fact about him. In battle during the War of Spanish Succession, he was slashed across the face and had to cover his scar with an eye patch. So the eye patch style that is like synonymous with pirates was started by him. That no other pirates wore an eye patch except for him. So the next time you dress up as a pirate at your next boring office party, you can thank Labuse.
And you can be that annoying guy when they say, "Oh, you're a pirate." Actually, I'm Labuse. It means the buzzard, and that's why you'll never get promoted, Carol.
Yeah. Now, so when the war ended, Louis XIV and the entire French government was like, "Hey, it's time to come back." And he said, "You know what? Actually, as it turns out, I'm pretty good at this whole pirating thing. So me and my crew we're just going to keep doing it." So he stole a vessel from, he stole like a French warship, and then he just went around pirating in the Caribbean for the next like several years. And he ended up joining a man named Benjamin Horngold, who was Blackbeard's mentor. So he joined
Wow.
he joined a pirate gang, and the name of this pirate gang is amazing. It was like okay. Sam and I are involved in a group text, and we send each other band names from time to time.
Sure.
And
It's called fake band names.
it's
Yeah.
called fake band names. But if I was ever going to start a band, the name of this band would be the name of this pirate gang, and the name of the gang was the Flying Gang.
Oh.
They were the Flying Gang, and they were a gang of like pirates that included Labousse, Benjamin Horngold, and Blackbeard, all in this gang, and they were like the Ocean's 11 of the pirate world.
I'm glad we're continuing with the blank of blank trend on our show.
What was the blank of blank there? Oh, the ocean. They were the Ocean's 11 of pirate gangs.
Yeah.
And as formed to be an Ocean's 11 pirate gang, in 1517 they pulled off what is known as the greatest pirate heist of all time. So there was this Spanish treasure ship that was sunk by a hurricane, and all the people abandoned, and they went to land, and they got their other authorities, and when they went back to go get their treasure, all of the treasure had been stolen by the pirates who were in the same hurricane following that Spanish treasure ship. And when it sank, they were better sailors, so they didn't sink. And then while they were getting help from the authorities, they had stolen all the treasure, which is like somewhere around like $1 million worth of treasure, and just boarded onto their ship and just left.
Sure.
And yeah, so they were, this is the Flying Gang. They're like an amazing pirate group. And so they were a pirate gang from about 1715 to 1717, and they broke up. And after that, Labousse kind of went into hiding. Now, not a lot of people know what happened after that, but he would pop up every once in a while, but he popped up in areas around Africa, and he popped up in areas where he would always have his ships either captured, destroyed. He was shipwrecked, stranded, but he would always come back with bigger ships, and no one knew where he got them.
From Jack Sparrow, right?
Yeah, from Jack Sparrow. He sold his soul to Davy Jones and got like this bigger ghost ships, I guess.
He sold his soul to Disney, and they just kept making movies for reasons we can't understand.
Yeah. In 1721, he captured a 700-ton ship called the Nostra Senora della Cabo. And it was this ship that when he took it, it had $400 million worth of treasure on it. And his taking of the ship actually inspired most of the events in Treasure Island and inspired the character Long John Silver. Eventually, all of his piracy caught up to him, and he was captured and executed in 1730. He was only 40, so, goals to look forward to in the future for you and me.
Good.
But this brings us to the actual real cipher I'm going to send you, or I sent you. So, legend has it that on the day of his execution, he took a necklace off containing a cryptogram of 17 lines and threw it into the crowd saying, "Find my treasure, the one who may understand it," which is what I sent you.
Right.
And the cipher that he sent into the crowd was a pigpen cipher. Yep. And it was easily decrypted, but it comes out as like gibberish. So there was gibberish French words suggesting that there is a code word or a one-time pad, which is something that Gilbert Vernon perfected, but we'll get back to that later. But what happened to the necklace is unknown, and the cryptogram kind of fell out of the public lore for several hundred years. But and this is where the story gets absolutely bonkers crazy, and this is where I started to really fall in love with it. In 1923, a woman by the name of Rose Savvy came across some carvings on this beach. And this beach was in Maui, which is an island in the Seychelles, which is a group of islands off the coast of Africa in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And she found these carvings, and the carvings included a dog, a snake, a turtle, a horse, a fly, 2 joined hearts, a keyhole, a staring eye, a ballot box, a figure of a young woman's body, and the head of a man. A public notary in the capital of the island went and found some old maps, and he found the first map published of that beach. And he found a map from 1735. And it said that the owner of this land was Labousse. So that island is now understood to be possibly the hiding place of all of his treasure. A neighbor of Rose's named Reginald Cruz Wilkins was so inspired by this story that in 1947 he dropped everything and was so consumed by this treasure hunt that it made it his life's passion to find this treasure. He started digging and digging and digging and he could not find the treasure, and he died in 1977 never finding the treasure. But this, Sam, is my favorite part of the entire story.
Okay.
Reginald Cruz Wilkins has a son named John Cruz Wilkins, who is currently in 2016 looking for this treasure.
We should have him on the show.
That's what I was saying. Like, I mean, this podcast is on the up and up, and we have microphones now. Like, our trajectory is up. So whenever we get our first 100,000 viewers, like, I'm definitely getting in contact with this guy because he is a professional treasure hunter. And I was looking up so much information about him, and that's essentially all that he does. He teaches history on the island, but whenever he's not teaching history during the summer and during the weekends and at nighttime, he is like using like state-of-the-art equipment trying to find this treasure all across this island. And it's what he's been doing for his whole life, like inspired by the vision of his father, just trying to like bring like vengeance the family. He is a real life Benjamin Gates from National Treasure, like trying to save his family name by like finding this treasure.
So you're saying he is a history teacher who is obsessed with puzzles. You being a history teacher
who's on his way there to being obsessed with
hosting
puzzles.
a show about puzzles, and I am obsessed with puzzles.
Yeah. So between the two of us,
we've got this guy.
I'm telling you, you and me could really drop everything and just become real life treasure hunters on this island.
I'm interested in the turn of this piece, because from what I understand, we haven't solved any of the codes, right?
No,
I'm interested how ASCII code gets into this, because
no, you'll see how ASCII code.
So far, we've got Pigpen and symbols.
Yeah.
Well, side note, for people making YouTube videos about uncracked codes, languages do not count as codes. Like, if I see one more thing talking about Mesopotamian symbols, it's like they weren't the CIA. Like, that was their language. Yeah, you're right. We can't read it, but it wasn't because they were hiding it. Like, if in 1,000 years no one speaks French and we find Les Mis, like, we're not gonna. Is Les Mis in French? Never mind. We find a French document. We're not gonna be like, oh, it's a French code. Like, no, it's just another language. Anyway, I watched a video today that was like 9 unbroken codes, and one of them was the Beale cipher, and the other 8 were just old languages.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So as you mentioned, these codes were never solved. But in 1934, a man came to the surface and he claimed to have the will of another pirate who supposedly found the treasure, which is a lot of degrees of separation.
Sure.
And in this, he posted more ciphers and more letters. And the first cipher, the one that we know was on the necklace, was never solved, but there was a second cipher. And the second cipher is the one that I'm going to spend most of the time talking about.
Okay.
The second cipher was the cipher with a picture with roughly the same Pigpen style thing. And it was very easily decrypted. And we have that message today. And the message says, a good drink in a bishop's hostel and a devil's seat, 46 degrees, 6 minutes, 2 times for the person who will discover it.
Which is similar to a poem.
Very similar to a
by Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. Is that right?
Yep, that is exactly right.
Yep.
Yes, so when Sam says it's similar in the way that Melania Trump's speech is similar to Michelle Obama's speech.
Where like it's just sort of words in a slightly different order.
Yeah, so it's almost word for word the exact same as a short story written in 1840 by Edgar Allan Poe. And that is when my research immediately shifted to Edgar Allan Poe.
Is this just a podcast about Edgar Allan Poe now? I'm okay with
I was
totally
thinking that
fine.
like, because all my research was just all based on Labousse. I was like, this is amazing. I'm gonna spend all my time on Labousse. And the second I saw that second cipher, it was like, this says this, da, 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 it's decrypted as this. And then I like started looking at that cipher, and it was like, yeah, but this cipher is just the exact same thing as another cipher by Edgar Allan Poe. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Poe is the puzzle master.
I know Poe is the puzzle master. He really has this whole puzzle thing down. And I did not know how much he loved puzzles. And like last week you mentioned it, but man, oh man, this guy loved puzzles. Yep. Poe boasted in his ability to like solve ciphers. He worked for a newspaper in Philadelphia, and he wrote to readers and asked them to send him ciphers, and he would just like crack them all the time. So people would send him ciphers like, yeah, I bet you can't get this one. He was like, yeah, I bet I can. And he would just solve it so quickly. And after he realized that people loved it, he wrote a short story called The Gold Bug, yes, which incorporated ciphers and pirates. And for this, he actually won $100, which was the most he ever won in his career. So The Gold Bug was the like much of the only money he actually got as a writer was writing this short story about encryptions and pirates. And actually, it inspired. It was the other thing that was credited for inspiring Treasure Island. So it is two things that have inspired Treasure Island. So can we make Treasure Island like a sponsor of the podcast now? Is that?
Yeah, we should also see if we can get Edgar Allan Poe as a guest.
yeah, we'll call him up, man. If I think that'd be so fun if Edgar Allan Poe showed up on this podcast and we got him as a guest. I feel like, and we're just talking about like, so what about encryption? People are like, how did you get him back from the dead? This podcast is more about puzzles. Thank you.
Yeah, that's our ghost podcast that I think you need. Also, to be fair, if anyone's a ghost, it's Edgar Allan Poe, right? If they're a ghost, really, it's really. He's a ghost.
Yeah,
like, he might have been a ghost the whole time, to be honest.
So the gold bug centers around this guy who is bit by a gold bug and gains some cryptography superpowers, kind of like a very bad version of Spider-Man. And using the bug, he finds and decrypts a cipher and finds a treasure worth 1.5 million. And the cipher I sent you this week is that very same cipher, but I just changed the message. Yes, that is. I took what I did and how I wrote this puzzle was I took all the numerical value, like all like the symbols, and translated them over to their alphabetical values, and I rewrote my cipher based solely on the gold bug cipher.
I was like one PDF away from having solved it a week before you sent it to me.
Yeah, really, you were.
Oh man, that's awesome. Okay, so when you say the numerical values,
or like the values with the symbols and things.
So in the gold bug, he uses these symbols, and
exactly, yeah. In the gold bug, he uses all those same symbols. So whenever you see like the 8s and the crosses and the brackets and like the multiplication symbols, he uses those symbols in the gold bug cipher.
Oh my gosh, I was so well. How do I solve it?
Let's talk about how to decrypt this message.
Yeah.
So this message is known as a monoalphabetic solution, and our viewers and Sam, hold on, because it's about to get real mathematical.
Okay.
This is a form of a substitution cipher, and substitution ciphers were for many years considered to be absolutely unbreakable. And if you actually do a substitution cipher correctly, there are over 400 septillion possible combinations for our 26-letter alphabet. And that's 24 zeros with 400. So that's 400 and then 26 zeros.
Shoo-wee.
Yeah. But even with all those possible combinations, there are only a few ways for those to make letters. And grammar and syntax exist. So not like a symbol cannot represent several other letters, and the symbols in a row have to say something. They can't just be gibberish. So for example, if you are trying to decode one of these messages and it ends up being something like QXRC, you can know that that is not correct because it's gibberish.
Right.
So these symbols can't all be different. One symbol has to represent one letter. Think of it like Wheel of Fortune. Once you determine a symbol is a letter, you can conclude that all those symbols will be the same letter. So for example, in Wheel of Fortune, whenever you say A, you don't have to guess A multiple times. Like once you say A, all the letters that are A will light up and you can just change them over to A. But how do we know what symbol is what letter? And that is something that I think Sam is very familiar with, and it is something called frequency analysis.
Right.
Frequency analysis is essentially the basis of all code breaking. It is that whenever you see the same symbol multiple times, you can conclude what letter it might be based on how much that letter is used in the English alphabet. So, for example, the most used letter in English is E. So if you start seeing a whole bunch of the same symbol, a good place to start is filling that space with E. So Sam, in the cipher I sent you, what symbol is used the most? I'll give you a hint. It is a number, and the number is the same time as the amount it's used.
I'm looking, I guess it would be 8. Is it 8?
It is 8.
Okay.
And 8, so you can therefore conclude that 8 represents what letter?
I mean, E would be the guess, yeah.
And E is correct. 8 in this puzzle represents E. But how are you supposed to know? Because unless you're a linguist, you don't know what letter in the English alphabet is used the most. But thankfully, in the Gold Bug short story, Edgar Allan Poe straight up gives us the most letters used in order. And so in the Gold Bug, he actually teaches you how to solve that cipher. And he gives you the most used letters in English language. And that row is E-T-A-O-I-N, and it just continues from there.
Sure.
I'm actually going to post that 26 letters on our Twitter page so you guys get a better understanding of that. And I'm actually going to text that to you too, Sam, so you can get it, unless you pull up the Gold Bug. So to solve this, you would put as many blanks on your paper as there are symbols in the cipher. And in this, there are 43 blanks. My cipher closely mirrors that of Poe's frequency theory. And once you get the first few patterns, you will kind of see words emerge, and you can kind of guess on context what those words might be. It's very similar to, once again, to Wheel of Fortune. So in Wheel of Fortune, the way you solve the puzzles, you don't need to have all of the letters to know what the answer is. You can kind of guess what it is. So for example, if there's T blank E, you can assume the blank in the middle is an H, and then you can solve it just like that. That is the second time I've referenced Wheel of Fortune. So that might be another possible sponsor to our podcast. So far we've gained what do we do?
Volkswagen Rabbits,
GoBots,
Hydrox,
Wheel of Fortune, and Edgar Allan Poe's Ghost.
Yes. This episode was brought to you by the ghost of Edgar Allan Poe, haunting you in the living, haunting you when he's dead.
Oh, whoa, that was pretty good.
Thanks, man.
So to solve this puzzle, patience is key.
So what I would do is I would go through these. I would see which ones are the most frequent.
Yes.
And line those up with which ones are the most frequent in the thing you're about to text me. It's
yes.
like which ones are the most frequent in the cipher, and then which ones are the most frequent in the alphabet.
Yes. And once again, my cipher very closely mirrors that.
When you say very closely, do you mean exactly? Because
not exactly. There's some variance. For example, I believe there are 2 or 3 of the symbols in there that are all used 4 times, and so using that, you kind of have to like use context to see like which one of the because in that they're both used 4 times, and so for those 2 or 3, you would look at the 2 or 3 that are next in the frequency thing, and then you kind of have to like plug in those and see which one makes the most sense.
Okay. Do we have any shout outs?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to edit out most of you solving this thing, because the whole shtick of this puzzle is it takes 1.5 years to solve.
Well, it doesn't take as long as ASCII code does, I'll tell you that. I was driving to work, and I was like, I've got it all figured out. I just need to figure out the key phrase. And it was like, find my treasure. Oh my God. And I pulled over and went home.
That's
to solve it, and I couldn't figure it out, so I went back to work.
Oh man, This podcast has taken you over. Jeez Louise, I would apologize, but it was your fault for thinking that I would ever design a puzzle though that is that like
It involves
crazy
computer
complex.
code. Yeah, that's gonna be a bad bet for you if you do anything involving computer code or art history or being snobby. You're running right into one of my traps if it has that. The treat. Sorry.
I can feel you solving it, and so I'm desperately looking for a joke to end this thing.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You're doing good.
The treasure. That's the word treasure. Okay. I don't know what the square bracket is. I'm also not good at Wheel of Fortune, so I'm not.
No, you're not. Well, you're good at Jeopardy, so I feel like
it's a much better game.
Oh wow, man! Cannot wait. Tomorrow night at 6:00, I'm gonna be hanging out with my mom. Me and her be watching some Jeopardy. We're gonna be watching some Wheel of Fortune.
Whatever.
Right before the evening news.
And then a blank.
And while Sam is solving that, take a minute to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already, and give us a rate and review. It helps us out a lot more than you would think.
Oh, made. Oh, it's...
Yeah, there you go.
It's made. Yeah.
Sam, what is the answer to the puzzle?
Despite our unofficial fourth rule, the answer can never be friendship.
But the answer is... I feel like if I were to solve the actual treasure, the actual cipher, the Labousse sent, that this is the actual answer to the thing. And I feel like once you solve the real cipher, you'll realize that
the treasure was the friendship we made along the way.
Thanks everyone for joining on this week's episode of Solve It. I'm Zach Johnson, co-hosting with Sam Cherry. You can find us both on Twitter at @1ZachJohnson and at Samuel_Cherry_, or you can follow us at Solve It Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, or you can follow us on our website, solveitpodcast.com, where after a long time, I know those of you who have been to the website did not see this, but we now have our puzzles up and loaded, and you can listen to all of our old episodes. Join us next week when Sam uses a treasure map and an old doubloon to teach you where the treasure of One-Eyed Willie is. Thanks. Bye.